The aperture on your camera's lens gets wider and smaller, controlling how much light gets in, a lot like the iris of your eye. When it gets darker, your iris gets larger to let more light in, and when it gets brighter, it gets smaller to let less light in. Back and forth depending on the light situation. Your camera can do this automatically, or you can control it yourself to let in more or less light depending on what you'd like to do with your photo. Let's take a look at what the aperture looks like in your lens.
So here we can see the different numbers on the side of my lens here are the aperture settings. So this lens goes from 16 or f16 all the way to f1.4, and you can stop it at any of these points to get a larger or smaller aperture. So remember that a smaller aperture, a smaller opening, is a larger number. So 16 is as small as this lens will go, and that is this size right here. See the hole in the middle? That is a size 16 aperture on this lens. And 1.4 is as large as it will go. So if I move this lever, I can show you as wide as this lens will get open. That's as wide as it'll go. So clearly, if the shutter goes off and the aperture is at 16, the smaller size, I'm going to have less light coming in on my photo. And if when the shutter goes off on my camera, it's all the way at 1.4, then I'm going to have a lot more light coming in on the photo. And I can stop it at any one of those areas along the way so that I can control how much light is coming in.
Other than letting in more or less light, another reason why you'd want to manually control your aperture is because it can do this really cool thing with your depth of field. Using a wider aperture will allow you to have selective focus, like on this leaf here. So when I took this photo of a leaf, I was at aperture 1.4, which is as wide as it would go for this lens. As I got smaller and smaller, when I went down to f4, now you can see there's more in focus. f8, even more is in focus. f16, which is as small as my lens will let me go, and now a lot of the photo is in focus. Okay, so aperture, let's review. The larger the number, the smaller the hole. And if you have a wider opening, you let in more light and fewer things are in focus. If you have a smaller opening, you let in less light and more things are in focus.